The encounter in the dark alley. The night was cold, and the streets of the city were alive with the hum of neon lights and the quiet buzz of flying cars overhead. Down below, in the darkest part of the lower levels, a homeless teen named Ethan pulled his torn jacket tighter around his shoulders. His stomach growled, but he ignored the hunger. Hunger was something he had lived with for years. Tonight, survival mattered more than food. He just needed a dry place to sleep. Ethan moved quickly through the alleys, his steps soft and careful. He knew where trouble lived in the city, the gang corners, the dealers, the shadows where thugs waited to prey on the weak. He had learned to keep his head down, his eyes sharp and his ears open. Still, no matter how careful he was, the city always had surprises waiting for him. As he passed a narrow alley between two broken buildings, Ethan froze. A sound drifted out of the darkness, soft but sharp enough to cut through the hum of the city. At first he thought it was just a cat or some wounded animal. But then he heard it again, a faint cry, fragile and full of pain. It was a voice. Curiosity tugged at him, though he knew it was dangerous. In this part of the city, cries could be traps. Someone pretending to be weak could lure in fools to rob or kill them. But there was something about this sound. It wasn't the angry wail of a trickster. It was a desperate whimper filled with fear. Slowly, Ethan stepped into the alley. The neon glow from the street barely touched the ground here. The darkness was thick, swallowing everything. But his eyes adjusted, and then he saw her. A small figure sat slumped against the wall, half hidden under a dirty cloth. Her skin caught his attention first. It wasn't like human skin. It glowed faintly, pale silver with hints of soft blue that shimmered like starlight under the shadows. Her hair, long and tangled, fell over her face. She hugged her knees tightly, trembling with every breath. When Ethan took another step closer, she lifted her head. His breath caught in his throat. Her eyes were closed. No, not closed. They were open but white and empty. She was blind. Please. The voice was fragile, almost like a whisper of wind. I can't find the way. Ethan's heart beat faster. An alien. He had seen aliens before, mostly keeping to themselves or working in gangs, but never like this. Never alone, blind and vulnerable. Every part of him screamed to turn away. Aliens meant danger. Getting involved meant death. He had survived this long by not caring about anyone else. But his feet didn't move. The girl struggled to stand, but her weak body failed her. She collapsed back down with a soft cry. Something inside Ethan broke. He remembered himself years ago begging for food on the streets, ignored by everyone. He remembered what it felt like when no one cared. Before he could stop himself, Ethan moved to her side. He crouched low, his voice soft but steady. Hey, it's okay. I got you. The girl flinched at his touch, her hands trembling as she reached out blindly. When her fingers brushed against his arm, she gasped. You're human. Ethan nodded, though she couldn't see. Yeah. And you need help. He pulled the cloth gently aside and lifted her carefully into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, weak from hunger or maybe sickness. She rested her head against his shoulder, whispering something he didn't understand at first, a word in her alien tongue. Then in broken human language, she said, Healer, please take me to Healer. Ethan's chest tightened. A healer? That wasn't easy. Healers cost money or worse, favors. And he had neither. But looking at her pale, glowing skin, feeling her body shiver in his arms, he knew she wouldn't last long without help. He turned back toward the main street, but something made him glance over his shoulder. For just a second, he thought he saw movement in the shadows at the far end of the alley, a tall figure watching him, then melting back into the dark. His heart skipped. Was someone following her or him? He shook the thought away and hurried on. The girl's breathing grew softer, weaker. He adjusted his grip and whispered, Don't worry. I'll find you a healer. Just hold on. The city stretched endlessly ahead, full of dangers he knew too well. But now, for the first time, he wasn't just walking for himself. He was carrying someone else, someone fragile and in need. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what kind of storm he was stepping into. But he knew this. He couldn't leave her behind. As the rain began to fall, Ethan vanished into the neon night with the blind alien girl in his arms, unaware that this single choice would change his life forever. The journey to the healer. The rain fell harder as Ethan carried the alien girl out of the dark alley and into the wider streets of the lower city. His thin jacket was soaked through and the cold bit into his skin, but he tightened his grip around the girl. She was shivering, her head resting weakly on his shoulder and her breathing sounded fragile, like each breath might be her last. The streets were alive even at night. Neon signs flickered above broken shops. Street vendors shouted about cheap food while gangs stood at corners, their eyes sharp like predators searching for prey. Ethan knew these places too well. As a homeless teen, he had spent years moving between them, learning when to run, when to fight, and when to hide. Carrying the alien girl made everything riskier. People noticed him now. He moved quickly, hugging the walls, avoiding pools of bright light where guards and patrol drones might see. The girl stirred and whispered again, "Healer. Please, healer." Her alien accent bent the human word strangely, but her desperation made it clear. Ethan sighed softly. He knew of one healer, a woman named Mara who worked in the underground quarters. She didn't ask too many questions, but she charged more than he could ever pay. Still, she was the only chance. "I'll get you there," he murmured, though the words were more promise than certainty. As he turned into a narrower street, a group of thugs leaned against the wall, smoking. Their eyes caught the faint glow of the girl's skin. Ethan felt his stomach twist. He lowered his head and walked faster, but one of them stepped forward. "What you got there, boy?" The man's voice was sharp. His eyes flicked to the alien girl in Ethan's arms, then back to him. "Pretty little thing. Doesn't look human. Maybe worth something." Ethan's grip tightened. His heart pounded, but he kept walking. "Not your business," the thug laughed, a rough, ugly sound. "Everything's our business down here." He moved closer, his hand reaching out. "Hand her over." Ethan didn't think. He turned sharply into another alley and ran. His legs burned, his lungs screamed, but fear pushed him forward. The girl clung to him weakly, her small hands gripping his shirt as if she sensed the danger too. Behind him the thugs shouted, but Ethan knew the streets better. He twisted through side paths, leaped over a broken fence, and finally slipped into a hidden tunnel he had used before to escape patrols. The darkness inside the tunnel swallowed them, and silence followed, broken only by his ragged breathing. Ethan slowed, pressing his back against the damp wall. His chest rose and fell quickly, his arms trembling from the weight of the girl. "You run fast," the girl whispered. Her voice was faint, but there was a trace of wonder in it. Ethan gave a short, tired laugh. "Had to. Streets teach you quick." He looked down at her, though her blind eyes couldn't meet his. "You all right?" She nodded slightly, though her pale face showed exhaustion. "You saved me." Again? He didn't know what to say. Saving her had not been a choice. It was instinct, a strange pull he didn't understand. For years he had only looked after himself. But this girl, this alien, was different. They moved through the tunnel until it opened into a lower district. Quieter, but no safer. Broken signs buzzed overhead and the air smelled of rust and smoke. Ethan adjusted his grip and kept walking. He noticed people glancing at them, their eyes lingering on the girl. Her glowing skin made her stand out like a beacon. An old woman selling fruit by the corner gasped softly when she saw the girl's necklace slip from beneath the cloth. It was a small pendant, shaped like a claw holding a glowing stone. The woman's face went pale and she quickly turned away, muttering words Ethan couldn't catch. Ethan frowned. "Why are they scared of you?" he asked, half to himself. The girl lowered her head. "They know my family." Ethan didn't press. He didn't have the energy for mysteries now. His only focus was reaching Mara, the healer. At last, after what felt like endless turns through damp alleys and crumbling stairways, Ethan reached a metal door marked with strange symbols. He knocked 3 times, paused, then knocked twice more, the signal he had been taught by others who owed Mara favors. For a long moment there was silence. Then the door creaked open, and an old woman with sharp eyes appeared. Her gaze went immediately to the girl in Ethan's arms. Her eyes widened and her breath caught. "You brought her here? Do you have any idea who she is?" Ethan blinked, confusion and fear rising in his chest. "She's hurt. She needs help. That's all I know." Mara's eyes darted to the pendant at the girl's neck, then back to Ethan. Her voice dropped low, urgent. "Boy, you don't understand. She's not just any alien. She's—" Before she could finish, the sound of engines roared outside. The glow of headlights filled the narrow street beyond the door. Shadows moved. Someone had followed them. Ethan's heart pounded as Mara pulled them inside and bolted the door. The girl's weak hand clutched his arm, her blind eyes wide with fear, and in that moment Ethan realized the truth. Whatever danger she carried, it had now become his. The healer's revelation, Inside the dimly lit room, the air was heavy with the smell of herbs and strange smoke. Shelves of jars and bottles lined the walls, glowing faintly with liquids of different colors. Ethan carried the alien girl gently to a wooden table, placing her down with care. Mara, the healer, closed the door quickly, locking 3 different bolts before drawing a curtain over the small window. Her sharp eyes darted around, full of worry. Ethan looked at her, confused but determined. "Please, just help her. She's sick, she's weak. That's all I care about." Myra's hands trembled slightly as she pushed her gray hair back and leaned closer to the girl. Her wrinkled fingers brushed over the alien child's glowing skin, then moved carefully to the pendant at her neck. The moment her eyes landed on it, Myra stiffened. Her lips pressed into a thin line. This is no ordinary child," Myra whispered. Ethan frowned, frustrated. "I don't care who she is. Just heal her." The girl stirred faintly, her blind eyes open but unfocused. "Please," she whispered, her voice weak. "It hurts." Myra's heart softened. She touched the girl's forehead gently, then reached for a small bowl filled with golden dust. She sprinkled it over the girl's skin, and the dust glowed brighter, reacting to her body. Myra's expression darkened. "She has been poisoned," the healer muttered. "Not with human toxins, alien venom. Whoever did this wanted her blind and weak." "And yet—" She shook her head in disbelief. "Her life force is still strong." "This child is not ordinary." Ethan clenched his fists. "Poison." He had found her in the alley, helpless, barely able to breathe. Now it made sense. Someone had wanted her to suffer. His stomach turned cold. "Then help her. You can cure her, right?" Mara glanced at him, her eyes serious. "Perhaps. But boy, do you even understand what you've brought me? That pendant," she pointed at the glowing stone hanging from the girl's neck, "belongs to the Draxion family." Ethan blinked. "Who?" "The most feared alien syndicate in this sector," Mara said, her voice low. Draxion is a name even the gangs whisper with dread. He rules the underworld. His word can topple markets, destroy cities, start wars. And this girl, she looked at the child with both pity and fear. "This is his daughter." Ethan's mouth went dry. He stared at the girl, stunned. A mob boss's daughter? He had just picked her up out of pity, carried her through alleys, ran from thugs, and now he learned he was holding someone whose name could shake the entire city. He looked at the girl again. She was just a fragile child in his arms, blind and poisoned. How could she be connected to someone so terrifying? Mara leaned closer to Ethan. "Listen carefully. The fact that she was left alone in the streets means one of 2 things. Either she ran from them or someone tried to get rid of her. Both possibilities are deadly for you." Ethan swallowed hard. "I didn't know." "Doesn't matter," Myra snapped. "Now you're involved. And those engines outside, those were not random thugs. They were trackers. They know she's here." The girl's small hand reached for Ethan's sleeve, clutching it tightly. Her blind eyes trembled as if she could sense the tension. "Don't!" "Leave me," she whispered. The words pierced Ethan's heart. He could have left her in the alley. He could still walk away, but something inside him refused. He couldn't abandon her now. "I won't," Ethan said firmly, though fear gnawed at him. "I'll protect you." Mara studied him for a moment, then sighed deeply. "Foolish boy, but perhaps brave. Fine, I will stabilize her for now. But know this, saving her means painting a target on your back." "Are you ready for that?" Ethan didn't answer. He only looked at the girl and nodded once. Mara set to work, mixing herbs and glowing powders into a bowl of water. She whispered in a language Ethan didn't understand, then pressed the mixture against the girl's chest. The glow from her skin pulsed, fighting against the poison. The child gasped softly, her body arching before she slumped back, breathing more evenly. "She will live," Mara said at last, wiping sweat from her brow. "But the poison has scarred her sight. She may never see again." The girl didn't cry. She simply turned her head toward Ethan's voice. "You carried me," she said softly. "No one else did. I trust you." Ethan's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. For years he had been invisible, unwanted, just another stray boy on the streets. And now this alien child trusted him as if he were her only protector. A loud bang shook the walls. The engines outside roared closer. Heavy boots marched on the street. Mara's eyes widened. "They found us. You must take her now. The back tunnels will lead you to the Undercity. Go." Ethan's pulse raced. He lifted the girl back into his arms. She clung to him, trembling but silent. Mara grabbed his shoulder, her gaze fierce. "Remember my warning." She is not just a child. She is the key to a storm that will swallow you whole. If you stay with her, there is no turning back. Another crash rattled the door. Voices shouted outside. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. Then I'll face the storm. With the girl in his arms, he slipped into the hidden tunnel as Mayra opened the passage. The air was damp and cold, but it was their only chance. Behind them, the pounding on the door grew louder. Closer. Ethan ran into the darkness, unaware that every step was pulling him deeper into a world he had spent his whole life avoiding. The dangerous world of the alien underworld. Escape through the underworld. Tunnels stretched before Ethan like the throat of some giant beast, dark, damp, and endless. His boots splashed against puddles as he carried the alien girl tightly in his arms. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breath steady but weak. The faint glow from her skin was the only light guiding him forward, shimmering softly against the stone walls. Behind them, the pounding on Mayra's door echoed like distant thunder. Shouts rang out, muffled by stone but growing more frantic. Ethan didn't dare look back. He had learned long ago that survival meant always moving forward. The girl shifted faintly, her blind eyes fluttering open. "Where are we?" she whispered. "In the Undercity tunnels," Ethan said, his voice low. "We'll be safe here. For a while." Her small hands clutched at his shirt. "You won't leave me, right?" Ethan shook his head, though she couldn't see it. Not a chance. The tunnels twisted like a maze, filled with dripping pipes and strange graffiti carved by those who had lived, or died, down here. Ethan knew bits of the Undercity. It was a place where the forgotten made their homes, where gangs traded secrets, and where patrols rarely ventured. But now, with a glowing alien girl in his arms, every shadow seemed like a threat. After what felt like hours, Ethan slowed near a broken iron gate. He set the girl down gently against the wall, his muscles burning from carrying her so long. "Rest a bit," he said. She tilted her head toward him, her pale eyes unfocused but steady. "My name is Lyra," Ethan blinked. It was the first time she had offered him something personal. "Lyra," he repeated quietly. "I'm Ethan." A faint smile touched her lips. "Thank you, Ethan." The moment was brief. A sound interrupted it, the clatter of boots echoing in the tunnel behind them. Ethan's stomach dropped. The pursuers had found their trail. He quickly pulled Lyra back into his arms and pressed forward, moving faster. The tunnels opened into a wider chamber, lit by scattered fires and makeshift lamps. Figures moved in the shadows, homeless criminals, wanderers who called the underworld home. Ethan stiffened. He had passed through here before, but tonight was different. Tonight, eyes turned toward him and the glowing child he carried. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some faces showed curiosity, others greed. One man stepped forward, tall and scarred, with tattoos across his face. "That pendant," he said, pointing at Lyra's necklace. His voice carried both awe and fear. "She's Draxian's blood." The whispers grew louder. Ethan's heart raced. If word spread, they'd all be trapped. He tried to push through, but the scarred man blocked his way. "Hand her over, boy. You don't know what you're carrying." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's sick. She needs safety, not you," the man sneered. "Safety with you? She belongs to the underworld, not to some street rat." His hand reached for Lyra, and for a moment Ethan froze. But Lyra's voice cut through the tension, small, yet clear. "I don't want him." "I trust Ethan." Her words struck like a spark. Ethan felt strength surge through him, and he shoved past the scarred man, ignoring the curses that followed. The crowd didn't chase. Most were too afraid of Draxian's name. But Ethan knew the word would spread fast. He ran deeper, turning sharply into narrower passages, until the noises faded behind him. His chest heaved with exhaustion, but he forced himself onward. Lyra rested her head against him again, whispering softly. "They're afraid of my father," Ethan frowned. "Is he really that powerful?" Lyra hesitated, then nodded. "He is. Feared by all, but I never wanted his world. I only wanted to see the stars again." Her voice broke, trembling, "And now I can't even see it all." Ethan stopped for a moment, his grip tightening around her. He had nothing to offer her, no money, no safety, not even a home. But he could offer one thing. "You'll see again someday," he said firmly. "I'll make sure of it." Lyra turned her blind eyes toward him as if searching for his sincerity. Then she gave a small, hopeful smile. The tunnel eventually opened into another section of the Undercity, a marketplace hidden from the surface world. Strange stalls lined the narrow streets selling weapons, stolen tech, and alien goods. Lanterns swung overhead, casting flickering light on the faces of smugglers and thieves. Ethan kept his head down, moving quickly through the crowd, but he noticed how some merchants froze at the sight of Lyra, their expressions turning fearful. A few bowed their heads in silence, whispering prayers as if she were sacred, or cursed. One merchant, an old alien with 4 arms, reached out. "Boy, that child. Do not linger here. Eyes are watching you already. If she is who I think she is, you're carrying fire in your hands." Ethan didn't stop. He couldn't afford to. He pushed through until he found another exit tunnel leading away from the marketplace. As they slipped inside, Lyra spoke again, her voice soft. "Why are you helping me, Ethan? You could leave me and all your troubles would end." He thought about it for a long moment. He remembered the hunger, the loneliness, the nights he had begged for help and been ignored. Then he looked down at her fragile frame. "Because someone should care," he said simply. "And right now, that someone has to be me." The words surprised even him, but Lyra squeezed his shirt with her small hand, holding onto him as though he were the only solid thing in her world. The tunnel grew darker, the noise of the marketplace fading behind them. Yet Ethan felt no relief. He could sense it, the chase was far from over. Somewhere above, in the higher levels of the city, a mob boss would soon learn that his blind daughter was alive, and in the arms of a human street rat. And when that happened, the entire city would burn. The chase and betrayal, the Undercity air was thick with smoke and whispers as Ethan carried Lyra through the narrow tunnels. His arms ached from holding her, but he refused to set her down. Every corner of this place felt like a trap, every shadow a pair of eyes waiting to strike. Lyra's glowing skin made her impossible to hide. She clung to him quietly, her blind eyes open but filled with a strange calm. Ethan's mind raced. He needed food, rest, and a safe place for Lyra, but more than anything, he needed a plan. He could not outrun Draxian's enemies forever. Still, the idea of handing her over made his chest tighten. He couldn't do it. She trusted him. After an hour of weaving through hidden passages, Ethan finally slowed near an abandoned warehouse. The doors hung loose and rats scurried in the corners. It wasn't much, but it would give them a moment to breathe. He laid Lyra down on a pile of old cloth and knelt beside her. "Stay here," he said softly. "I'll look for food. Don't move until I come back." Lyra's hand reached out blindly until it found his arm. "You'll come back, right?" He nodded firmly, though she couldn't see. "Always." Ethan slipped out into the dim streets of the Undercity. He moved quickly, searching for anything he could steal or trade. Finally, he spotted a familiar face. Jax, a boy around his age who also lived by scavenging. Ethan had worked with him before. They had traded scraps and even protected each other once against thugs. Relief flickered through Ethan's chest. "Jax," he called quietly, rushing forward. "I need your help, please." Jax turned, his thin face lit by the glow of a nearby lamp. His eyes narrowed when he saw Ethan. "You're alive. Word is spreading fast, Ethan. People are saying you've got something dangerous with you." Ethan's stomach clenched. "She's not dangerous, she's just a girl. Blind poisoned. She needs food and a safe place." Jax's eyes gleamed with curiosity. "A girl? An alien girl?" His grin grew wider. "So the rumors are true. You've got Draxian's daughter." Ethan stiffened. "Keep your voice down." "Please, Jax, I don't care about names or rumors. She's just a child who needs help." For a long moment, Jax studied him. Then he gave a small laugh. "You always were too soft, Ethan. That's why you've survived with nothing while others climbed higher. But fine, I'll get you some food. Wait here." Ethan's relief returned. Maybe Jax still had loyalty left in him. Maybe friendship still meant something in this broken city. He waited, shifting anxiously, glancing around at the shadows. Minutes passed. Then footsteps echoed down the street. Not just one set, many. Heavy boots. Voices muttering in low, dangerous tones. Ethan's heart sank. Jax appeared at the front of the group, his grin cruel now. "I told them where you were," Jax said coldly. "You think I'd waste my chance? Draxian's daughter is worth more than gold. They'll pay me enough to get out of this gutter forever." Ethan's blood went cold. Betrayal cut deeper than any blade. "Jax, how could you?" "Survival," Jax sneered. "Something you never learned properly." The men behind him stepped forward. They were no street thugs. These were mercenaries armed with plasma rifles and sharp blades. Their leader, a tall alien with red markings across his face, smiled darkly. "Hand the girl over, boy. You're not part of this war. Save yourself." Ethan's fists clenched. He could run. He could throw Lyra at them and escape. It would be easy. But when he thought of her small voice whispering, "Don't leave me," something inside him hardened. He turned and bolted back into the warehouse. The mercenaries shouted and gave chase. Ethan's lungs burned as he reached Lyra, scooping her into his arms. "We have to go," he whispered urgently. Lyra stirred, sensing the fear in his voice. "What's happening?" "They found us," Ethan said, his voice breaking with panic. "Your father's enemies. They want you." Her small hands gripped his shirt tightly. "Then don't let go." Bullets of plasma tore through the warehouse walls as Ethan darted through the back, stumbling into another tunnel. Sparks lit the darkness as shots narrowly missed them. Ethan's legs screamed with exhaustion, but he forced himself to keep running. The tunnels twisted endlessly, and every step felt like a gamble. Behind them, the mercenaries closed in, their voices echoing. Jax's laughter rang out above them all, mocking Ethan's desperation. "You can't run forever, Ethan," Jax's voice taunted. "Hand her over, and maybe they'll let you live." Ethan gritted his teeth. His voice came out raw and fierce. "I'd rather die than betray her." Lyra's blind eyes filled with tears. "Ethan." Somehow his words gave him strength. He burst into another chamber, breathing hard, searching for an escape. His eyes landed on a narrow shaft leading upward. Without thinking, he shoved Lyra into his arms more tightly and began climbing the rusted ladder. Plasma bolts struck the walls around them as the mercenaries stormed in. Ethan climbed faster, his hands slipping on the wet rungs. His muscles screamed, but finally he reached the top and dragged Lyra into another hidden tunnel. They collapsed, breathless but alive. For a long time, neither spoke. The only sound was their ragged breathing. Finally, Lyra whispered, "They'll never stop, will they?" Ethan shook his head, his chest heavy. "Not until they have you. Or until we're dead." She reached for his hand, clutching it tightly. "Then we'll fight together." Ethan stared at her pale, glowing face. She was blind, fragile, hunted by enemies he couldn't even understand. Yet her voice carried a strength he admired. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about standing against a world that had abandoned both of them. Somewhere far above, Draxion's empire was stirring, and soon the mob boss himself would know his daughter was in the hands of a homeless boy. The storm was coming closer. The mob boss's wrath. The city never truly slept. High above the Undercity's dripping tunnels, the towering skyline glowed with fire and neon. A restless beast of steel and light. In the heart of it, within a fortress draped in banners of crimson and black, the most feared figure of all sat on his throne. Draxion. His very name spread terror in the streets. His empire stretched across planets, his commands carried out by soldiers, smugglers, assassins, and spies. Few had ever seen him and lived to speak freely. Tonight his calm mask was cracking. A trembling messenger knelt before him in the grand chamber, the marble floor reflecting the mob boss's massive figure. Draxion's body was tall and powerful, his alien skin a deep shade of gray with sharp ridges along his temples. His eyes glowed red like embers fixed on the terrified servant. "Say it again," Draxion's voice rumbled, cold and thunderous. The messenger swallowed hard. "My lord, the girl, your daughter, she was seen in the Undercity with a human boy." For a moment silence filled the chamber. Then the sound came, a deafening crack as Draxion's clawed hand crushed the armrest of his throne. His soldiers flinched, though none dared to move. "Alive," Draxion whispered. His voice trembled with something strange, rage but also relief. "They dare touch her. They dare take my blood." The chamber darkened as his anger filled the air like a storm. "Find them, burn every tunnel, kill every betrayer who stands in your way, and bring her to me." His roar shook the walls. Far below, Ethan and Lyra rested in a crumbling stairwell, their breaths ragged after endless running. Ethan leaned against the wall, his arms wrapped around her protectively. He could still hear the echoes of mercenaries searching the tunnels behind them. Lyra stirred, her blind eyes blinking slowly. "Ethan," she whispered, "he knows now." Ethan frowned. "Who?" "My father," she said softly. "He will come." Ethan's chest tightened. He had heard the name Draxion whispered like a curse in the alleys. He had never believed he would cross paths with such a monster. Now he was hiding from the most powerful crime lord in the galaxy. Before he could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. A deep rumble rolled through the tunnels. Lights flickered above and dust rained from the ceiling. Ethan pulled Lyra closer. Then came the sound, an explosion tearing through stone, echoing closer and closer. Draxian soldiers were not searching anymore. They were breaking through. Ethan bolted to his feet, carrying Lyra again. "We have to move," he hissed. They stumbled through the tunnels, guided only by the faint glow of her skin. But no matter how far they ran, the rumble followed. It felt as though the very Undercity was collapsing under the weight of Draxian's wrath. Finally, they reached a wider cavern where flickering lamps revealed armed men waiting. Ethan froze. Dozens of soldiers stood in perfect formation, their eyes glowing faintly under their helmets. And at the center stood the mob boss himself, Draxion. The alien towered over everyone, his presence suffocating. His crimson cloak swept the ground as he stepped forward, his burning gaze fixed on the small figure in Ethan's arms. For a moment, the fierce leader was gone. In his place was a father staring at his lost child. "Lyra," Draxion's voice rumbled, deep and trembling. Lyra's head lifted, her blind eyes turning toward the voice. "Father?" Her voice was soft, broken. Draxion's hard expression cracked. For a moment, Ethan saw something raw in his eyes. Relief, pain, love. But then the mask returned, sharp and cold. His gaze snapped to Ethan. "And you," he growled, his voice a blade. "A human street rat dares to carry my daughter?" Ethan's knees felt weak, but he tightened his grip on Lyra. She needed help. No one else came. The soldiers shifted, their weapons humming with energy. Draxion raised a hand, silencing them. His eyes narrowed. "Why? Why did you protect her when you could have sold her to my enemies and earned riches beyond your dreams?" Ethan's voice shook, but he forced the words out. "Because she trusted me. Because she's not just your daughter or some prize. She's a child who was left to die, and I couldn't walk away." The cavern went silent. Draxion's expression darkened, unreadable. Then with a sudden movement, he strode forward, towering over Ethan. His hand shot out, clawed fingers gripping Ethan's collar and lifting him off the ground as if he were weightless. Lyra cried out, "No, don't hurt him!" Ethan gasped for breath as Draxion's eyes burned into him. For a terrifying moment, he thought the mob boss would snap his neck. But then slowly, Draxion lowered him back down, releasing his grip. He studied Ethan like a man sizing up an opponent. "Bravery," Draxion muttered. "Or foolishness. Few would dare speak to me this way." Ethan coughed, his legs trembling, but he didn't look away. "I'm not afraid of you. Not if it means protecting her." A strange silence followed. Then unexpectedly, Draxion gave a low, rumbling laugh. It was not kind, it was dangerous, but also tinged with respect. "Perhaps you're more than a street rat," Draxion said finally. His eyes shifted to Lyra, his voice softening. "And perhaps you have chosen your protector well, child." Lyra smiled faintly, her blind eyes wet with tears. "I told you, father. He carried me when no one else would." Draxion turned back to Ethan, his gaze sharp once more. "You saved what is mine. For that you live. But know this. If you betray her, if you betray me, your death will be slow and merciless." Ethan nodded, his voice steady. "I don't plan on betraying anyone." The mob boss's soldiers lowered their weapons. For now, Ethan had survived the wrath of Draxion, not by strength, but by courage. Yet as he stood in that cavern, holding Lyra close, he knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning of a bond that would drag him deeper into the most dangerous world of all, the heart of a mob boss's empire. New beginning, the cavern grew quiet after Draxion's words, though the silence was thick with tension. His soldiers remained in formation, their weapons lowered but their eyes sharp, as if waiting for the command to strike at any moment. Ethan still held Lyra close, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his ears. He had survived standing face to face with the most feared mob boss in the galaxy, but survival did not mean safety. Draxion turned slowly, his crimson cloak sweeping across the stone floor. "Bring them," he commanded. His soldiers obeyed instantly, forming a protective wall around Ethan and Lyra. It was not an invitation, it was an order. Ethan hesitated, but Lyra's hand tightened on his shirt. "It's okay," she whispered. "He won't hurt us. Not now." He looked at her blind eyes filled with a quiet trust and nodded. "All right," he said softly and followed. They were led through winding passages until the damp tunnels gave way to polished stone halls glowing with alien torches. At last they entered a vast chamber filled with gold, relics, and weapons from 100 worlds. At the center stood Draxian's throne, carved from black stone and etched with ancient markings. Draxian sat, his presence towering, his gaze locked on Ethan. He gestured to the table before him, where a healer in silver robes was already preparing strange instruments and glowing vials. "Lay her there," Draxian ordered. Ethan hesitated, reluctant to let go of Lyra, but she touched his cheek lightly. "It's all right, Ethan, please." Slowly he set her down on the soft surface. The healer began chanting in low tones, placing the glowing vials across her body. Strange energy rippled through the air, wrapping Lyra in light. She winced, then relaxed, her breathing steadying. "She will recover," the healer said at last. "Her strength will return, though her sight may remain lost." Draxian's jaw tightened, his red eyes burning. "Who did this to her?" he demanded. The healer bowed. "The poison bears the mark of the Vorik Syndicate. They sought to cripple her, to use her as leverage." A growl rose from Draxian's throat, deep and terrible. His soldiers stiffened, as if bracing for war. Ethan felt the raw fury radiating from him, wrath not just of a leader but of a father. "Vorik," Draxian hissed. "They will pay in blood." Lyra's small hand reached out, her voice weak but firm. "Father, not now, please." Draxian froze. His fury faltered as he looked at her fragile form. Slowly he lowered his head and nodded. "For you, my daughter. I will wait, but only for now." As the healer worked, Ethan stood silently, feeling out of place among such power and wealth. He was still the same homeless boy who had scavenged for scraps, who had hidden from gangs in the alleys. Yet here he was, standing in the throne room of a galactic mob boss with the life of his daughter resting in his hands. Finally, Draxian's gaze returned to him. "You carried her through the streets, through fire and betrayal," he said slowly. "You could have sold her 100 times over. Yet you did not. Tell me, boy, why?" Ethan swallowed hard. His throat was dry, but his voice came out steady. "Because she was alone. Because no one else cared. And I know what that feels like. I couldn't let her die that way." The words hung in the chamber. For a long moment, Draxian studied him in silence, his expression unreadable. Then, to Ethan's surprise, the alien leader gave a single nod. "You have courage," Draxian said, "and a fool's heart. Perhaps that is what my daughter needs." Lyra turned her face toward Ethan, smiling faintly. "I told you, father. He is different." For the first time, Ethan saw something soften in Draxian's eyes. Not weakness, never that, but a flicker of something human. When the healer finished, Lyra sat up slowly, her strength returning. She reached for Ethan's hand, holding it tightly. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "I won't," Ethan promised. Draxian rose from his throne, towering over them both. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Then so be it. You will stay. You will protect her. From this day you are under my watch. Betray her, betray me, and your end will be slow. But keep your word, and you will never be homeless again." The soldiers stirred, murmuring at the declaration. A human street rat given a place under Draxian's shadow. It was unthinkable. Yet it was real. Ethan's chest tightened. A part of him wanted to run to escape this dangerous world. But when he looked at Lyra, her blind eyes trusting him completely, he knew he could not. "I'll protect her," he said firmly. "No matter what." Draxian stepped closer, his burning eyes meeting Ethan's. Then, in a rare moment of respect, he placed a massive hand on the boy's shoulder. "Then you are not just a boy anymore. You are a guardian." That night, Ethan lay in a chamber unlike anything he had ever known. Soft bed, warm blankets, food within reach. Yet sleep did not come easily. He stared at the ceiling, his mind heavy. He had stepped into a storm larger than anything he imagined. Lyra slept nearby, her breathing calm, her hand resting near his as if to make sure he would not vanish. And for the first time in years, Ethan did not feel alone, but he knew this was only the beginning. Draxian's enemies would not stop. Jax was still out there, waiting for another chance to betray him. And the Vorik Syndicate had declared silent war by striking at the mob boss's blood. The city would soon ignite in chaos. Yet in that moment, with Lyra safe beside him, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. For the first time, he wasn't just surviving. He had a purpose. And no matter how dark the road ahead became, he would walk it, not as a homeless boy, but as the protector of a blind alien girl who had trusted him above all others. A new beginning had come,